Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be sharing with you my meal prep. I used to do this all the time. I fell off of this for about 3 weeks. So now we're back and I am ready to get started. So first things first, I'm going to make zuppa, which if you go to Olive Garden at all, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This is one of the easiest soup recipes I've ever made, and it's so good. I've made this a couple times before. So we're just chopping up our veggies, the onions, and the potatoes. Next, I'm putting some oil in a pot and I'm going to start sauteing the onions and I'm going to throw in the garlic. Now the recipe, which I will have both of these recipes for the zuppa and the honey sriracha meatballs, I will have those in the description box if you want to check them out. I also post all of my recipes on my Instagram story when I do my meal prep. So if you're not following me on Instagram, I would highly suggest it. But I will tell you, I simplified this recipe so much. I did not do my own garlic. I just used minced garlic in the jar. And then this is the Italian sausage that I used. So the other thing I didn't do for this recipe is I didn't add bacon. I didn't have anything thawed out, so I didn't add it, and I don't know, it just makes it more healthy that way, I guess. So once your sausage is mostly cooked, you're going to add your potatoes and let those saute for a little while to soften the potatoes. Once you're done letting those saute for a little while, you're going to add 5 cups of vegetable stock. I just added 2 cartons, I believe that's around 5 cups. And then you're going to bring that to a boil for about 40 minutes. Now, once my pot is boiling, I'm going to cut up some kale for the soup. Now, this is a little bit later. The soup has been boiling for a little while, so I'm just smashing the potatoes a little bit to make the consistency a little bit more thick. Once you add your kale, you're only going to let it cook in there for about 5 minutes. You don't want your kale to get too mushy, otherwise it just becomes really undesirable. Now I'm just adding my cup of heavy whipping cream, stirring it up and letting it warm up for about 5 minutes, and then I am just going to put it in containers and put it in the fridge, and that concludes the zuppa. Next up is our honey sriracha glazed meatballs. I will say I would definitely do this again, but I would use less sriracha. The fourth of a cup that it calls for, I think is way too much. It is very spicy, and I'm not one to wimp out on the spice. So at this point, my oven has been preheated and I'm just forming the meatballs and then baking them for 20 minutes. So while the meatballs are in the oven, I'm going to start making the sauce. I am going to start by cutting up my ginger and then adding all of the condiments. So I always end up doing this to myself. I always end up putting something in the dishwasher and then starting it while I'm meal prepping and then realizing that I definitely could have used it again. Like the knife that I used to cut up the onions, I definitely could have used it to cut up the ginger. Now, like I mentioned earlier, I would definitely recommend using maybe about 3/4 of a fourth of a cup of what it calls for the sriracha, because it's a little spicy, I will say that. And like I said, I'm not one to wimp out on the spice, so I feel like I have a good sense of when things are too spicy. But I would definitely suggest using maybe half or 3/4 of what you're supposed to use, tasting it, and then maybe adding more if it's to your liking. So then I'm just stirring to combine and bringing to a light simmer to thicken the sauce. And then once the meatballs are done for their 20 minutes, you're just going to throw them in the pan and cover them with the sauce. So once all the meatballs were coated, I felt like I needed a little bit more sauce, so I just added a little extra honey to kind of sweeten them up and extend the sauce a little bit. So the green beans that I put with the meatballs, I just roasted at the same temperature as the meatballs for about 15 minutes. I just put olive oil, salt, and pepper on them. Alright guys, that'll do it for today's video. Thank you so much for sticking around, and I hope you have a great day. Bye!